Good afternoon, guys. My name is Israel Ololade, and I'm going to be your instructor through this course. So, I would like to say you're welcome. I appreciate your interest, and I think it is a very good one because we live in an age where everything is constantly changing, and in order for you to actually have an edge, you have to, ride on the wings of the you know state of the art technology. Okay, that's by the way. So today I'm actually going to show you the basics of HTML. um, we're going to be looking at what HTML is really, how you can use it, where you can find it, and how you can begin to write your own HTML. This video does not require any prior knowledge of any programming or coding skill whatsoever. You can actually start from this video and begin a journey through with me on this course, and you're going to learn a lot in the process. I urge you to trust me. Okay, so basically, I said HTML is the standard programming language for the web. And what that means is that every website you see, doesn't matter where you find it, is built with HTML. So, by definition, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is used to define the basic structure of a web page using a process called markup. So markup in itself is not is used to annotate to a system or browser on how a text should be structured or then displayed, like you have on WhatsApp and many other text editors that you might have come across. So what a markup actually does is to a markup language would actually highlight a particular part of a document and suggest to the system that is meant to handle that document on what they should do regarding that document. So let's say you have a paragraph and a header on the top, and a line at the bottom of the paragraph. So how do you tell your browser to place this element in such a way that it's going to interpret the way you actually want the document to appear? The answer is markup. So let's take a very good example. I don't know if for those of you who have actually used my WhatsApp before, you're actually going to see that you can actually make some text bold on WhatsApp. You can make some italicized, and it's because of the ability to actually use what they call markdown. So markdown is actually a version of markup, and that is when you actually use plain text or symbols to actually annotate to a system on how it is meant to handle a text. So if you should do what you have here on WhatsApp, where you have this is bold. When you put an asterisk at the beginning of a text and one at the end of the text, WhatsApp automatically makes it bold. The process of making it bold is actually markup. So you need a markup language to be able to tell a system to make a text look in a certain way or place it in a certain way on the screen. So that's that about markup and markdown. So there are some facts about HTML, and one of the very first facts that a lot of people get confused, though some people disagree, is that HTML is not a programming language. It is basically a markup language. And what I mean by it is not a programming language means it does not have any logic embedded in it. For you to have a programming language, you have to be able to create dynamic functionalities. So HTML doesn't have any dynamic functionalities, meaning that it is static. So if a button is blue, with the help of HTML alone, we can't get that button to be red unless we have to go back to where we made it blue and change it back to a color red. And you understand that as we go forward during the course of this course. So the second fact I'd like for you to know is that HTML is a standard markup language for web browsers. And what that means is that every web page you see is actually built with HTML. There are other kind of markup languages, but for HTML, that is what the web actually is able to interpret and turn into those beautiful web pages you see everywhere, and probably the one you're using to watch this video right now. So the first skill you learn that's the third thing I want to communicate with you, is that the first skill you learn as a web developer is actually going to be HTML. So HTML is where you will start. If you want to start doing web development, you start with HTML, and you actually ride your way through whatever programming languages or whatever styling languages you might learn on the fly, but HTML is where you want to start from. And it's as simple as you can actually get familiar with HTML in 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes it depends on your pace and how much time you have to devote to it on daily basis. You can actually master a good part of HTML within a week's interval, and that's no joke. So let's go on to see the next slide. So there have been different versions of HTML. So currently, what you see as a standard everywhere is HTML version 5. There's to be HTML 4, and the difference is actually the fact that there are new features added, and those new features actually why we have newer versions, because before HTML5 there used to be difficulty handling certain things like videos and audios and iframes and certain things on the web, and in order for those functionalities to be seamlessly integrated using HTML, new tags had to be created, and you see that as we go on in the course. So the next thing I'd like for you to know is HTML in itself is not very beautiful. When you see bare HTML, it actually looks like what you see on the screen. So that's a paragraph, and underneath it you actually find an image that is not is not styled whatsoever. It is just the normal dimension and the normal looks of the image, and beneath that you find an horizontal rule, which is also another HTML element, and under the horizontal rule you find a button. So this is bare HTML. So HTML, like I said, in itself doesn't look very beautiful. It's actually very, very, very ugly. And in order for you to begin to create beautiful web pages, you don't need to just rely on HTML alone. You also have to require another technology like CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheet. This course is not about CSS, it's basically about HTML, and that's what we'll focus over the next couple of minutes. So right now, I haven't gotten you familiar with what HTML is and why you need HTML. Let us go on to get familiar with how you can actually begin to write your own first HTML web page, and that's exciting. I'm actually excited to actually walk you into that as we go into it over the next part of the course. So in order for you to write HTML, you will need what they call a text editor, and there are a couple of them around. You have Visual Studio Code, you have Sublime Text, you have a whole lot of them actually, so I can't even begin to name them right now. So all you need is, as long as you have what it takes to write a text in an application, which is a text editor. And the most important part of actually creating HTML is the extension behind the name of the HTML file, and I'll show you that in a bit. So if you can actually create a text document, you can create an HTML document, except that the syntax now will come into play, which is basically the essence of markup. Okay, so let us go further to begin to look at what's like to actually write your own first HTML. You need a text editor, and there are actually some tools on the internet that mimics a native text editor, but for the sake of this course, let's just go to where we'll really be working with, without like, we don't have to use fake stuffs if we can actually go on with the original, and that's by the way. So let's get started. So this is my desktop, and I already have a folder created, and the folder is tagged HTML, and when I open HTML, I can actually create a new file, and that's all I need to begin to write HTML. And all I need to do is just right click and all I need to do rather is okay. Wow, this is actually telling me welcome to Mac, because okay, on Windows I would actually have a text editor. I have the ability to actually create files directly from inside the folder, but that's fine. So let's actually what I'll do is, and don't mind what I'm about to do right now, I actually like to keep it very basic, but given where we are right now, I'm actually going to take it a step further, but don't mind what you see. Really, all we are trying to do is just create an HTML file, and what I want to do is to open Visual Studio Code at the directory of this particular folder. So what I'll do, this is the icon for Visual Studio Code, which is my favorite text editor, of course, and I'm going to pop that open. And when I pop that open, it is not going to open because that's actually it opened on a different desktop other than this one. So this is what Visual Studio Code looks like. And all I can do here is to create a new file, but I want to be able to access this folder that I already created before. So what I'm going to do is click on Visual Studio Code and go to File, and I'm going to click on Open. And when I click on Open, it's actually going to pop up, all of my stuffs, my folders, and what have you. So I'll click on Project, which is where that particular folder is. So I have OI Code Bootcamp, and I think okay, this is the lectures. So this is the HTML folder you saw earlier. So I just click on Open, and I can actually open that folder in my text editor, which is Visual Studio Code. So this is the HTML, and all I need to do is just create a new file, and this new file is going to be called practice, and I'm going to leave it that way. And because it is practice, when I go back to my folder, I actually see the file has been created. It is called practice. But if I check the file info, you're actually going to see just an ordinary regular file. It doesn't have any special thing. It is just a file, and it's actually size 0 kilobyte. So that's actually very funny. So in order for us to make this file HTML, all we need to do is just add an extension behind the name of the file. So I'll go back and rename this file. And what I'll do is at the end of the file, I just add an HTML extension. So that automatically, and you can see that the icon behind the name actually changed from what we had before, and it is now recognized as an HTML document. And when we go over to the folder, you see the file actually has a type of HTML, and that is that. So this is how you get to initialize an HTML document if you want to start writing one. And inside of here, we're actually going to write a couple of HTML. And HTML actually has a basic structure that you cannot bend. It is opinionated, and you have to stick to that. And what is that structure? What it looks like basically is it's actually a bunch of tags, because HTML, like I said, is a building block of the web page, but HTML itself has its own building blocks, and those building blocks of HTML are actually what we call HTML tags. Okay, so every HTML page is made up of HTML elements, and each HTML element is actually made up of HTML tags. So if you have a button, for instance, that button is actually in HTML terms a tag. It is not a button element that you're seeing on your screen. There's a tag behind the element. A tag produced that element. So let's go on to begin to write our own HTML. And I don't want to go into a lot of details, because I just want you to get get to start writing HTML as soon as possible. This is actually a very closed video. It is not open to everybody. It's actually meant for OI Code Bootcamp, and I'm happy to be sharing it with you. So let's go on to start writing our own HTML. So the first thing you do is actually make a declaration, and that declaration is exclamation doc type. And what that actually does is this, and this is not case sensitive, but the convention is that you type it in capital letter. So doc type HTML, and what this does is automatically tells your browser or whatever will be reading this HTML file later on that what you're about to write is HTML5. Remember, I talked about HTML versions. There's to be HTML4, HTML 1.0, and different other versions, but this is HTML5. So let us just go on to continue writing. So at the topmost level, you have the declaration of what version of HTML we are writing, and beneath that you're going to have your global HTML element, and that is your HTML tag. So before I go further, our HTML, every HTML element is actually made up of, I'm talking about, to every general statement, of course, there are always exceptions. So our HTML, every HTML element is made up of what we call tags. This is a tag, this is another tag. But as you can see, I'm actually repeating something here. But if you look closely, you actually see that I'm not repeating anything, because this is actually different from this. And if you look at it by close inspection, you actually see that there's a backslash behind the closing part. And what that means is that every other thing that goes inside of this opening tag, this is an opening HTML tag, and this closing HTML tag will become the element of that tag. So whatever I put inside of here, whatever it may be, is going to be the content of the HTML tag. Okay, that might sound ambiguous when I said HTML tag, because everything is actually HTML tags after all. But this is HTML tag. I don't know if you understand what that means. So inside of the HTML tag, we are going to have two basic tags, and the first one is going to be the head tag. And because I'm using a text editor that actually understands that this is HTML I'm writing, so it suggests to me and auto complete certain things for me. So when I write the opening part, I don't get to write the closing part by myself. You don't get that benefit when you're writing in HTML in Notepad. So inside of my head tag, I'm actually going to have a couple of things, but just to show you that we actually have just two basic things inside of the parent or the topmost HTML tag, which is the HTML tag itself. So what we have is the head and the body tag. So just to break down a couple of things, the head tag is what contains most of the metadata that your page will have. And what I mean by metadata is, you've seen Chrome, you've browsed various web pages, and you see that at the topmost part, and let me just pick up a Chrome page for instance. I'm actually going to pick up a Chrome, and what I'm going to do is hold on while I grab something for you. So we have this web page, and you actually see at the topmost level, we say a pen by Israel Olade, and what this is actually, this is the title of the page, and this title you see on top of the tab is actually what you get to find inside of this head tag. You write the title in the head tag, and not just the title, but most of the crucial information about your web page will go inside of the head tag. So just as a way of starting, let us put our title inside of the head tag. So I'm just going to write title, and inside of title I'm going to say first ML document. So that's that. So that's the title. This head tag will contain a whole lot of other things, but for now let us leave it the way it is. So inside of the body will contain everything that will be visible to your user. So if a user visits a web page, what they see basically is the content inside of the body tag. So there can be hundreds of stuffs inside of the body tag. So the body will be one big parent tag that actually has a lot of children inside of it, and all of those children will be HTML elements made up of tags as well. So leaving that aside, let's begin to write a couple of things, but for now let's just leave it as is and try and open our HTML document inside of our browser. So I'm going to do open with, and I'm going to open it with Chrome, and that should give us this. And as you can see, the title is up here, our first HTML document, which is what we actually called that. And I'm actually going to make this smaller, and I'll make it smaller so that we can put our text editor side by side with we can put our text editor side by side with the browser. That way we can write and get to see the changes take effect almost instantly. So make this kind of smaller. Wow. So I'll make this kind of smaller, and I'll put a text editor on the other side of it. Okay, this looks good. Okay, so inside of the body tag, I'm actually going to start writing some basic HTML tags, and one of the first HTML tag almost everyone will get to learn about is the header tag. So when I write h1 and I write hello, this is h1. So the moment I reload the browser, I'm going to see that element on the page. So this is how web pages are created. Maybe it will be a little bit, maybe kind of more complicated than that, but this is you actually building websites. So let's go on to create a couple more tags, and the second one is going to be h2, which is also another category of header tags. I say hello, this is h2. Okay, so that's that. And the third one is going to be h2. We actually have from h2 up to h6, so I'm just going to copy and paste that a couple more times and show you what I mean by that. And as you can see, the browser isn't really updating, it's just fixed because there are actually extensions used to manage that, so that while I'm working, and while I'm making changes to my HTML documents, there are extensions that can actually reload my browser automatically so that it catches up with the changes I am making. But that's, by the way, we'll see that eventually, but I think we are a little bit too early to begin to play with stuff like that. So let's just let's just do HTML. So when I reload, we're actually going to see from H1 to H6. So as you can see, the browser automatically knows how it is supposed to handle each one of these texts, that even if they are the same kind of text, if I change the content of the text to the very same thing, the browser will still know that because of the kind of tag I'm using, it knows exactly how to handle each one of them. So I'm actually trying to I'm trying to get the content of the content to be the same. Let me just write hello and then put it inside of the browser. You see, it styles all of them differently, even though the content are the same. And how does the browser get to know that? Markup. So because of markup, the browser understands how to interpret each HTML element. And this is one HTML element, this is another HTML element, this is another HTML element, this is another HTML. These are 6 HTML elements. So the second tag I like for you to know about, which is also very popular, you'll be using it a lot as you code, is the paragraph tag. And I'm going to generate some dummy text by pressing lorem and tab. So that gives me some dummy text. So when I reload the page, it's actually going to generate a paragraph for me because of the paragraph tag that I'm using. And there are other tags, maybe like for emphasis, like maybe strong makes a text bold. So this makes a text bold. So the text inside of here will actually look different compared to the bare paragraph. So we also have small. So when I reload the page, you're actually going to see that is coming to play. And as you can, okay, we're actually going to come to why they are side by side. If you notice, all of the other elements, actually stacked on top of each other, but these ones are rendering side by side, and that will bring us to the subject of what we call, inline elements and block level elements. A block level element automatically takes a block to itself, like the H1 takes a block to itself, the H2 takes a block to itself. And what I mean by a block is the entire row to itself. So every other element that comes after it will have to come beneath it and not sit beside it. Then we can actually begin to override that particular default feature of this H1 and the header tags by using CSS. But that's by the way. So this renders beside this because both strong and small are actually inline element, and what that means is that I can actually next them inside something like a paragraph, for instance, and it's going to work perfectly because it is an inline element. But what I would not want to do is to nest a paragraph inside of a paragraph. I don't want to do that because paragraphs are block level elements, and it is grave, it is an atrocity in HTML to actually do this. You don't want to do that because you don't want to nest one block level element inside of another block level element, except they are enclosing tags, like which we will come to later. So this is small, and in order for us to actually bring this downward, what we need to do is just put another kind of HTML tag, which is a BR tag, and it's going to put a line break in front of that element so that the other one comes down. So as you can see, it comes down. So we also have elements like let's say we have a P, and inside of our P I will say okay, position first. And in order for me to be able to create the first element, I'm going to do a superscript, which also works, and I'm going to do st, and that's going to do what that does. Okay, and that is for superscript. So let's say we want to write logarithm of 10, and we're going to do log. What I just need is a subscript, and the subscript is actually going to help me. It's going to sort that for me. So as you can see, this is the beauty of markups. Markups actually helps you achieve all of these things. You can have an intention on how you want a web page to look, or a document to look on the internet, and you, with markup, with HTML, you tell the browser how you want it to handle each aspect or each element on the page, and that's very beautiful. So that is the heart of HTML. So HTML by itself, like I said, is not beautiful. So let us go on to create another element, and one of the most popular elements you might also come across that you will use a lot is the image tag. And you look at the image tag, it's quite different because you will not be doing an opening tag for image and a closing tag for image. That's never going to happen. It is because the image itself is a self-closing tag. It does not need to have any content because the content is the source of the image. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a random image from the internet and use that. So let me just go over to google.com and say images. So when I say images, I can just copy any of these images and copy the image URL. Copy. Let me not do that. I actually want I want to copy the image itself. So I'll copy image address. Okay, let's go back to our web page. That's all we need. So inside of the source, I'm going to put in the image address I just copied, and that should be it. Oh, that's a very long string, so let's go back to the beginning. Okay, that one, I think that wiped out something else. That has tampered with something else. What's the problem? Oh, actually, I think we made a mistake. Sorry, I think I messed something up while I was trying to sort that out. Okay, the body tag got deleted for some reasons, I don't know. So this is going to be the image link, and the text next to it is going to be the alternate text. And what that does is, let's just go on to load the image. You can actually find that the image is there now. So the text next to it that is written alt is what you call an alternate text in case the image fails to load. And let's say the URL of the image is not correct, like let's just get rid of maybe a character from the image string, so you can actually see that the image doesn't display anymore. So if we don't want that to happen, HTML provides us with this attribute on that tag, and that attribute is an alternate text attribute. I'm just going to call it image. It could be any text just describing the image, so that when the image fails to load, you're actually going to see the text even still. So that's that about them. So this string is actually too long. I actually want to get rid of it. It is super long. So let's get rid of it and then go back to basics. So okay, I'm getting rid of the image tag. So one other element you can have is the button tag, and the button tag will actually have an opening and a closing part, and inside of it is going to be the content of the button. Because if I just reload the page and you see the button element, it doesn't really look like a button, does it? So what you need to do in this case is it has to have an element, the element a content inside of it. So let's say the content of the button tag is press me. So that's the content inside of the button tag, or button tag rather. And if you reload it, you actually see that we have a button. So tags are the building blocks of HTML. So we can go on and on. There are actually, I think, over 100 tags on HTML alone that you can actually leverage on to do a couple of things. So when you go to any website, let's say youtube.com or facebook.com or whatever you go to, you're actually going to see that it's actually made up of all these realities that we just stated. So if I go on to go to Google homepage, you can actually see things play out here. You can see that this is an image, and in order to actually affirm that to you, I'm going to do something that that is available on Chrome and most of the browsers we use, and that is to inspect a web page. So before we go on to inspect the web page, I want to show you the source code of this page, and which is not a trick, by the way. It's actually open to everybody. You don't have to be a developer to see that. All you just need to do is right click on the page and go to view page source. When you go to view page source, what you actually see here is one very massive HTML document. And if you take a close look at it, you can actually see what we said initially. You see a doc type declaration at the top, which is similar to what you have on what we just did. Then you see the HTML opening tag here. And after the HTML opening tag, what do you find? The head tag. And inside the head tag, remember I said the head tag contains metadata or any information about your page that will not be visible to the end user. So inside of that, this actually this JavaScript, but you can actually write JavaScript in the head tag at all also. But if you scroll down very well and take a close look, you actually see that you have you can actually see the operation of tags and so on inside of here. So that is what is actually happening. You can actually see that, this kind of messed up because it's Google, of course. There are a lot of functionalities in operation and in action, but to tell you that every web page is made up of HTML. So this is this web page. So another way to actually inspect the source code of a page is to click on inspect. You actually see a lot neater version of what we just saw. So you can actually see, the topmost declaration. Then you see HTML, you see the head tag, and if you open the head tag, you see a lot of information about this page. So you see things like the image, the icons, and everything is inside the head tag. Then inside of the body tag, you actually see the different elements on the page. So you see that this element rather, when I inspect and open it, you actually see that we'll get to find our image inside one of these, and this is really nested. So this is the image on the screen. So if I come here and, for instance, type maybe try and hide the image, I can actually do that. You see it goes out, but this is just bare HTML because I'm trying to show you that what you have on google.com is actually similar to what you have here. And the only difference is the fact that this that you are seeing here is actually, it's a finished product, and that is not just HTML. You also have other things in play like CSS and so on. So if we were to write only this in HTML, trust me, it's not going to be as beautiful as that. So you need a sister technology to actually use HTML to create beautiful web pages. So that being said, I think that should be all I'll be talking to you guys about concerning HTML. If you have any questions after watching this, I want you to just go over to the group and ask your questions. And if you have if something is not clear, or you've been working on a web page, you've been trying to build a product, I believe you're trying to do something, trying to learn how to code. If there's anything you're working on and you're getting stuck, kindly just leave a message in the group, and it's going to be handled by, if not myself, but there are others who have actually gone ahead of you. I'm just learning HTML, but I believe there's always a learning curve when you're about to explore and every new technology. And even I don't think any single developer will actually say they've mastered all of the tags available in HTML. You just use them on the fly, so you don't have to really try to memorize the tags and do all of those sort of things. Just understand what each one of them does, and whenever you need one, your subconscious mind automatically tells you this is what you need. For instance, if you need an image, and an image tag, of course your mind will tell you this is an image tag I need to actually render an image in HTML. But the other trickish part that you might actually have choices between 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of tags to use to achieve a particular goal. And one of them is a strong tag, which we just used here, and the EM tag. We also have a bold tag. So these are all available. But for you to actually, get to learn more about HTML, there are resources online such as W3 Schools. I love W3 Schools. I learned a lot from W3 Schools. So you can actually go to learn HTML, and right there you're going to see the different kind of tags in HTML, and you can actually take a look at that. You see a lot of things here like tables and stuff like that. You get to learn a lot. It's a reference book basically. It's not a textbook. Just for you to make references to know what particular thing it does. And if you go over to the tag list section right here under, so you're going to see the different tags you have available in HTML, and there are a lot of them, but don't be overwhelmed. It's actually it's always worth looking at, and the ones you actually need to get working on HTML is not actually going to be so you don't have to know all of them to begin to write HTML. You just need a couple of them. Trust me, you don't even need 30% of what's on this list to begin to write good HTML websites. So thank you. My name is Israel Oladi, and I'm so happy to work with you to this end. So I'll see you guys in class on Saturday evening.